Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another weekly reading wrap up. Now I gotta tell you, during the middle of this week, I did not feel like the weekend was gonna get here, okay? This week was a rough one. If you follow me on Instagram, and I know not all of you have Instagram. In fact, if you don't know, I do try to post some content from my Instagram on my YouTube stories. I know those don't get watched a lot. I can see how many views they get. But if you're someone who always says, Jen, the stuff you talk about on Instagram, I can't see it. Well, the things that are important, I do try to share in my YouTube stories. So, and you can see my YouTube stories, either I will show up in your feed when you're going through, or if you go to my profile, like my YouTube profile, there will be this red circle around my face, and if you click on it, it will flip you through YouTube stories. Just wanted to remind some people of that. I know I do have some older viewers who are like, what are you talking about? Which I fully understand, and I wish I didn't have to know all the things that I do. But anyway, I had one of the worst bouts of migraine that I've had. I can't remember the last time it was this bad. I don't mean this to be a complaint about my difficulties, because everybody has their own physical limitations and issues that keep them from living the life they want to live from time to time. But this week was one of the worst ones I've ever had. Like, I get them sometimes every other month or sometimes monthly, it depends. But this one was for me, it was horrific. I could barely move, and it lasted for 2.5 days. So I was just so drained of energy. But I am looking over my titles, and I still ended up getting through quite a few books. Part of that is because I needed to reread Silver Flames, which we will get to, because we do have the live show for that this Sunday. The day that you're watching this, we will be talking about Silver Flames that night. And I was able to listen to that while I was curled up in the fetal position on my couch. So yeah, it was a thing. But anyway, I'm very proud of myself for how many books I got through. Also, that I reread some of my all-time favorite books. So excited to talk about those. As well as I got to read some new books by authors that I have loved quite a few years ago. They have new books out, and they were all of those books that I read were such a joy. I was really nervous that I would be disappointed. You know, my reading taste has evolved and changed. Will I still like these authors? And I really did. So very excited about that. So then before we get into the books that I read, as always, we have some new supporters to shout out. This channel would not be possible at the level it is at without my channel members and patrons. I couldn't have been sick for 3 days during the middle of a week without the support of you guys. And that is always made clear to me when I have a day like that and all of my patrons and supporters are like, Jen, just rest. We're good. We're still going to be here. We know you go through this. And it's a simple thing to say, but you guys, you really don't know how much that means to me, because I don't take for granted any day that I'm able to wake up and be a full-time booktuber. You guys, it blows my mind. And I have had some people asking about an update, and I plan to do one. We're coming up on my year anniversary of this. And so I will be doing a huge Q&A, probably a party. We'll probably have a party. We'll have a party that I've been doing this for 1 year. I got all my tax stuff turned in last week. So, I'll still have to write the check to pay the taxes, but I got everything turned in, and I just felt so accomplished. And I'm like, you did this, but we did this. I make the content, I supply the entertainment, but you guys supply the bankroll, whether it's just you watching this video right now and hopefully liking and subscribing to the channel, or people like Miss M, who joined the channel as a sassy supporter. You go, Miss M. Thank you so much. Or whether it's Alona Toth, Nikki Marin, and Summerly Norton. Summerly, your name makes me wish for warmer days, okay? It isn't blizzarding anymore, but the wind is like a pack of wolves out there. It's ridiculous. Or if you're like these wonderful people who support this channel and help me be able to do this, you all are important. And I say that every week because every week it's important. And there we go. Now it's time to get into the books because boy, are we excited. So if I'm looking down at all, I have all my books on my computer here so that I don't forget, because I definitely have a bit of brain fog after this week. But I don't have brain fog for talking about this book because I freaking love it. So I reread Contradictions by Ampersands. I reread this book and it solidified itself as top tier fan fiction. I have read a lot of fan fiction since I read Contradictions now, okay? By the way, I say this every time when I hold up one of these. This was hand bound for me by Mel Binds Fix. Mel is a wonderful friend of the channel, a friend of mine, and she is a hand binder. No, you can't just go out and buy one of these. You need a friend like Mel, or you'll have to learn how to do it yourself to bind a book. But this cover design, she did put it together and she bound this book for me. In fact, she even did this beautiful cover as well. But I always have people ask when I hold up one of my fanfics, where can I get one? I'm sorry you can't. But you can read this for free on AO3, which I will have a link to it down below. But anyway, Contradictions is a Dramione fanfiction, and I have read a lot by now. I was cataloging how many I've read, and I've read about 70 fanfics in the last year. I read a couple this week. We'll have more to talk about. But this is a top tier. This is set... I don't know if they're like 5 to 10 years into life. I can't remember. But Hermione goes to basically a like BDSM matchmaking service. She gets paired up with a dom because she's been having trouble in her sex life, trouble letting go and being able to enjoy it. And she's done her research like a good Hermione Granger would do and discovered that BDSM could be an option, having someone help her get out of her head. And things go kind of awry when she gets paired up with Draco. First, doesn't know that it's Draco. And then when she finds out, she's absolutely horrified. But when he explains to her like why he's a dom and how he thinks that BDSM could help her, and he understands if, they shouldn't be paired together because of their history. And she's like, you know what? No, I think that you would be the person to help me. And then they go on this adventure together. And Hermione definitely gets herself into a little bit of trouble because she does struggle to let go and to submit. And Draco isn't necessarily a brat tamer. That's not what he's in for. But he does help her learn a lot about herself. And as a woman who likes to be in control of things, this is a great BDSM for beginners book as well, especially someone who struggles with the idea of letting someone be in charge of you and why you think maybe like I could never do BDSM because of blah, 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 blah. Well, this doesn't necessarily go overly extreme with the acts that they do together. It's very much about the power dynamic and explaining that we each hold a lot of control in this, but none more so than the submissive, because nothing happens that the submissive doesn't consent to. And I think it's a great explanation, as well as being top-notch fan fiction. So this is obviously 5 stars. It's a 4 on the spice scale. Something I've been trying to do this year, I don't always do great, but is to tell you the different kinks and specific things in it. And so this one obviously has BDSM in it. There are sex toys and restraints, and some impact play are kind of the main things that they do. So just love it. I absolutely love rereading that. All right, then I read That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. I have been wanting to read this book for quite a while, and it was actually recommended on my 12 recs from 12 friends for this year. And I will say I was a little bit disappointed in this one. I definitely want to continue the series. I know there's some really, like, the next one is That Time I something and yeeted a love potion at a werewolf. Like, the titles are delightful. And this is like fully a fantasy story. There are magical creatures in here. There are really interesting situations. There's kind of like fated mate going on as well. And it also involves like a road trip to take down like an evil, is it an evil sorceress or something? I don't know. I will admit that I didn't fully know what was going on, and that was part of my problem with this book. But it is so much fun and delightful, like everyone says. It just was almost too wacky for me. And this is a novella. It's only 180 pages. And I feel like it was just trying to do too much. Like with a novella, I kind of like us to just have like one thing we're trying to do. And it just felt like there was a lot that was trying to be done. And so it just was a little bit overwhelming for me. But Fallon is the name of our demon, and Cinnamon or Sin is the name of the heroine. And she was really fun. Her family was very fun. This did end up being a 3.5 star for me, and it was a 2.5 on the spice rating. I was actually kind of sad that it wasn't as spicy as I was wanting it to be. But there is some monster anatomy going on in here. So I did not hate it, but I also was just kind of like meh about it at times. Then I read a book that I was pretty highly anticipating because my friend Ashley, yes, Ashley Mack, who is also an author herself, love her books, she got me into Summer O'Toole around Christmas time. Actually, I read Make Me, and this one is called Hate Me. And this one actually inspired a video that I'm going to be filming after this one, if my voice holds up. But this one is interesting because it's kind of like they were friends when they were young, but not completely, because they're from rival like mafia families. There's the Fox family, and those are badasses. And then our heroine, Effie, her father is kind of a rival to them. So her and Finn could never like fully be together, but he was obsessed with her, and he's always wanted her. Like since they were teens, he would do anything for her. But when she kind of she's being used by her father, and she is supposed to use this connection she has with Finn to manipulate him and get some information. And it ends up backfiring because Finn like knows what she's doing. And so there was a really great scene in the beginning where like she thinks she's tricking him into taking her home with him, and she's going to spy on him. And instead he ties her up and sexually tortures her into explaining why she's there. And then they end up in a forced marriage. And she is supposed to continue spying on him during this forced marriage. And what I really liked is there's a point where for them to get used to each other and actually to be kept safe, they get taken to, like, they go to this small, like, kind of like cabin in the woods that is actually kind of like removed from everything, and they have very limited resources while they're there. And they really are kind of working out their issues, both like sexually and trying to unravel this knot where like she's been very degraded by her father and forced into a lot of horrible situations. And if she wasn't forced to marry Finn, she was going to be forced to marry somebody else. And when her father, decides that Finn has not proved as useful as they wanted him to, well, he's just going to marry her off to somebody else. Well, she's still married to Finn. She's going to marry you to somebody else. So it gets very like knotted and convoluted. But Summer O'Toole has that bit of bonkersness to her plot. Like that was definitely there in Make Me, and it's here in Hate Me as well. Because here's the thing. This has some pretty naughty BDSM elements involved, like some really good ones. But at the same time, Finn would crawl for her. Like, there's a fabulous scene where she's trying to, like, mess with him, and he is messing with her, and there happens to be, like, a stripper who comes in, like, a dancer comes in, and he's like, "Isn't she look beautiful?" And he's like, "She'd look more beautiful on her knees." You know, he's messing with her, and Effie is like, "I am not going to be disrespected this way." And so she says, "Actually, he'd look better on his knees." And what does Finn do? He does it. He's like, "You know what? Challenge accepted." And he gets on his knees for her and eats her out while she is staring down this dancer across the room. And it's pretty intense, okay? It's a fucked up relationship. There's no lie. But it's one of those where there is, like, this edge of playfulness to it. Now, there are some triggers because her father is abusive, and a lot of the things she has to do, she doesn't want to do any of them, but she feels very, like, locked into it. But this one does have some great kinks. You know, as I've said, there are some BDSM elements. There is also sex toys, some spanking and impact play. There was anal and restraints used. So we get a cornucopia of good times. So I gave this one 4.5 stars. I really did like it. The story did kind of, like, have a few too many twists and turns for me where it felt a bit disjointed at times. So I took off 0.5 star, but, like, I still rated it a 5 on Goodreads because I just get so much enjoyment from these books. I really am. And I'm very much looking forward to the next Fox Brother. So it gets a 4.5 because I'm like, it was fun. All right. Then we had another reread that this is one of my books that is very delicate, but I treasure it so much. I have other copies of it, but one of the copies was annotated and sent to my patrons, so I'll be on the lookout for more. But I reread Mine Till Midnight. This is one of my step back ones, but this one, as you see, is very fragile. The newer copies are edited to remove some insensitive language, so I have one of the newer copies, but when I reread, I do reread the older copy. Not because I enjoy reading insensitive terms or, like, you know, like cruel terms to people, but because when this edit was made, they didn't just edit out words that should be changed, okay? Because I think we can all agree that certain words just don't need to still be in books these days. But they also tamed down Cam and didn't make him as dominant as he is. And I have a problem with that because, well, we should change our language about the Romani people and not call them gypsies. Okay, we shouldn't be calling them that. But we don't need to tone down Tam's powerful bedroom actions, okay? I will tell you, I'm a little incensed by the newer version and why they felt the need to tame him down, because he's delicious, okay? He's delicious, and this reminded me he's one of my favorite Kleypas heroes, okay? Mine Till Midnight is the first book in the Hathaway series, all right? Cam, if you don't know Cam Rohan, he works at Jenner's, and we meet him in The Devil in Winter, and he is a friend of Evie's. They, like, grew up together because he worked at Jenner's and she's Jenner's daughter, and so they've known each other. Nothing between him and Evie ever happens, but we see him a lot in that book because when our lovely Devil is married to Evie and working there, him and Cam butt up against each other a little bit, but they're friends at this point, and he helps St. Vincent run Jenner's for Evie. And he meets Amelia Hathaway when she comes to London to find her older brother, who is cavorting and wasting money and drinking and gambling in town, and she is there to drag his butt home. And that's when she meets Cam, and they have this kind of clandestine kiss because he's just kind of wowed by her. Like, he thinks she's amazing, but he's also like, nothing can happen between us. She's like, nothing can happen between us, but he kisses her when she's on her way out of town, not knowing that her family was just like, they own the land. It's been gifted, well, I mean, it's been like, her brother inherits a title, and with it is some land, and they need this, even though there's this decrepit house that is just barely safe to live in, and it's right next to the park where Marcus and Lillian live, and Cam happens to be visiting, and then they meet each other again, and Cam is like, you know what, 1 time is an accident, 2 time is fate, and I think she's my fate. And just watching him come to that realization and then trying to, like, convince her, but also just like, you know what, I'm going to steal you out your window at night and take you on a magic ride on my Puka horse. Yes, he has a magic horse named Puka. And you're going to be my woman, and I'm going to convince you. And what I love is, like, Amelia doesn't think she can have good things. Like, she needs to take care of her family. Her brother isn't going to do it. She's got to keep everyone in line. With love, of course. But Cam is like, yeah, you don't have to do this on your own. And in fact, it would be my joy and my burden to help you take care of your family and to give you someone to lean on because you don't have anyone. And I love that interplay. I love that so much. I love a strong, independent woman who fights him a lot along the way, but who eventually realizes that I can have something for me. I can have someone who is my support and my love. And I just love it. This book is excellent. It's some peak Lisa Kleypas. It's beautiful. It's 5 stars. And a 3 on the Spice scale. I'm telling you, Cam can get it. Okay, there are like 4 or 5 sex scenes in this book. And part of the reason why I was so offended by the redo that they did when it was put in audio and they, you know, they corrected some things, they tame him down. We don't need our boy tamed down, okay? He is delicious, all right? And I am offended by that, okay? I'm not offended by them changing names, but I'm offended by them taming him down, okay? Do not approve of it. Anyway, good stuff. All right, then I read another fanfic. This one is called Doing It for the Order by Desert Sea. So this was kind of funny because some of you watching right now, 3 of you independently, because people actually put their names in for this one, 3 people independently recommended Doing It for the Order by Desert Sea to me. And it was like within a couple weeks. Like, they were all put in there. And so I already had it downloaded when some of you recommended it. Also because I've read other books by Desert Sea before, or other fics by Desert Sea. They write a lot of Hermione fics. So Hermione is Snape and Hermione. And so, yeah, I was like, I'm going to read this one because it's a bit of a quicker one. It was like 250-ish pages when you figured out. So this one involves a curse, of course. So Snape and all of the people with the dark mark are cursed to, they must have sex, unprotected sex, with a different muggle-born or mudblood every week, or they will die from it. Okay? Yeah, this is a complicated curse, and part of the reason this one didn't end up being a 5-star for me is it was like, we put too many hoops in place for this curse. I mean, it's effective for what the story's doing, but it was very complicated. So Voldemort's gone, like, in a totally different thing where he does think interbreeding needs to happen because he thinks that we need to repopulate with more, and he's like, you know what, I am a half-blood. And so I'm just going to make everybody have half-bloods, and then no one can say that they're better than me. I don't know. I'm making this up. Voldemort's crazy. It doesn't matter. But he puts this curse in place. And so a lot of the Order members, guess what? Or not the Order. The Dark Death Eaters, this isn't a problem because they're like, well, we'll just rape and pillage Muggleborns and Mudbloods. We don't care. And there are all these things put in place where you aren't able to, like, use Polyjuice Potion to trick it, you know, because you could theoretically have one Mudblood that you use Polyjuice Potion on once a week, and then they're a different person that you're fucking each time. Also, again, like, they can't have any contraception in place, or if you, and you also cannot ejaculate outside of their body. or you will be in extreme agony. So the spunk's got to go inside without any barriers in place, and it has to be a new person every week. And so what does this mean? This puts Snape, our undercover order member in the Death Eaters, in a horrifying position where he will need to find a different mudblood or muggle to have sex with every week. And he has had to do this a couple times already, and one person, the experience went horribly, and they were going to try to use contraception, and he had to literally, like, confund them. And it was horrifying. And so he's basically willing to die. But Dumbledore's like, wait. We have found a get around. Not using Polyjuice Potion, but using this spell, which of course this specific spell is able to work because we need there to be a loophole. And we happen to have a mudblood, Hermione, that we can do this with. And so they get Hermione in there, and they convince her to do this and do this spell on herself each time they have sex. And it changes a part of her body just enough that apparently she's a different person each time. See, it's confusing. But now that we have the setup in place, and I've just explained all of that to you, basically what it leads us to is that Hermione and Snape need to have intercourse once a week for as long as it takes to defeat Voldemort. So, there we go. And it was pretty good because they slowly are falling in love. In the beginning, Hermione makes this very, difficult, which she sure should, because the Order is asking her to prostitute herself to her teacher. But they slowly start to make the best of it, and we go from there. So it wasn't horrible, but again, it was very overly complicated, and that kind of took some of the enjoyment out of it, because you're just like, this is so complicated to get them together. I've read it in other ways where there are reasons they have to have sex that were easier to get to. So I gave this one 4 stars. It was a 3.5 on the spice scale. Obviously, trigger warnings are forced sex for both of them. But there is also a rape of Hermione by someone else at some point. So be prepared for that. Because here's the thing. She is a hot commodity at the school for anyone else who may have a dark mark and need to fuck a mudblood at some point. So I'll just put that out there. All right, then I read Comfort by Megan Matthews. I won't talk too much about this. There's going to be a live show at First Lady Reads channel talking about this, because this is part of the ABCs of Love. This one is a second chance romance, small town. I will tell you, though, that I gave it 3 stars, and it was a 1.5 on the spice scale. So it wasn't my most favorite thing that I've ever read. All right. Then I reread A Court of Silver Flames, which, as I said, I read most of this during my migraine. I was listening to it. So I wasn't able to pay as close attention to it as I wanted to for this reread. But we are going to go into deep, deep detail in this for the second to last SJM along. I can't believe it. Is at 6 p.m. I think it's 6 p.m. on Sunday on my channel. Me and Melissa will be deep diving into this. I just could die for this book every time I read it. I don't understand how for some people it's their least favorite Sarah J. Maas book. TikTok is a scary world. I don't understand it. But this book, to me, is perfection. And I just did this little TikTok where, you pick your favorite SJM. And currently, this one is it for me. I think that A Court of Mist and Fury is obviously beautifully written, and it is a top-tier book. But for the personal journey and the, shit that Nesta is working through, this book has my heart and soul, okay? It has it all. And Cassian is also my precious baby child. I just love him so much, and his indomitable spirit as well, and that he never gives up on Nesta. Part of it is he can't help himself, but also he's seen some dark things. He's been alive a long time, and he knows what depression looks like and what it is. And even though our group of heroes is at their wits' end with Nesta at the beginning, they wouldn't do the things they do for her and force her to do if they didn't believe she has the chance. And the thing is like, Nesta doesn't want to be alive. And that's a hard place to start with for a character. Her trauma is layers and miles deep, and she doesn't even have the will to get out of it. So she's a miserable human to herself and to everyone else. And that is not an easy road to walk. It's not an easy path to journey down, but it makes the triumphs of it so beautiful. And the reconnection of the sisters, which in my opinion isn't fully complete. When and if we get Elaine's story, I know there's more to tell. And Elaine is pretty unlikable in this one because we're seeing it from Nesta's point of view, and we're seeing it from her thinking Elaine is perfect and having things so easy and blah, blah, blah. But none of the Archeron sisters had it easy, okay? They just handled it very differently. And Nesta's choice was denial and hatred. That is how she handled it. And I'll stop now because I'm going to talk about this book for hours later this weekend. But it is perfection to me. There isn't a single thing I would change in this book. It's a 6-star read. It's also a 3.5 on the spice scale for me. The trigger warnings are PTSD, death of a parent, alcoholism, self-hatred, a little bit of self-harm, and suicidal thoughts. So it's not the easiest book to walk into, but it's powerful and epic. And I love it so much. And I love the map in this one. Look at that. Anyway, I loved it. Even through my pain of my migraine, it was beautiful. All right, then we got into some fun shit. So I read Teach Me by L.L. Ash. This is a book that I didn't even know to anticipate until I was checking upcoming books I wanted to read. And L.L. Ash wrote a book called Him a few years ago, which was a taboo best friend's dad book. It was the first best friend's dad book that I'd ever read, and I really liked it. And randomly, L.L. Ash has another book in this series. Now, it's not connected to the previous one in any way that I could see, but this is a student-teacher romance. It wasn't extremely taboo, because it certainly wasn't as taboo as Him was, which was an 18-year-old and a 36-year-old. But this one is a 23-year-old. She's a senior. She's a TA for her teacher, who is 42. He's divorced. He has 2 kids. He is a Sapphophile. So him and his wife just kind of grew apart. And it's a bit ironic because his wife, his ex-wife, is actually dating someone who's younger than the heroine. So there wasn't a ton of taboo in this one. It was a very smooth read. There's no third act breakup in this book. It was a slow burn of them because, again, he's a Sapphophile, so he's falling in love with her intelligence, and he's kind of quirky, just a little bit quirky, and she's pretty shy, but their romance together it's beautiful. I really loved it. I had a great time, and it was just such a nice surprise. So this was a 4.5 star. It's a 4 on the spice scale. And in the spice, we have both some anal play and toys used. So lots of books with toys. Lots of books with toys this week. I like it. We ain't done yet either. Then I listened to the audio of Untamed Hunger by Tiffany Roberts. This is book 4 in the Infinite City series, and it was one I was very much looking forward to because this is Drakal. Drakal is our kitty alien, okay? He's called Kitty by his crew members, and in the beginning of this book, he is completing a job that Arcanthus has sent him on. He's supposed to be doing an interaction with this guy who, surprised, he finds out is a slave trader. And some of the slaves that he has are people. And one of them is a woman named Shay, who is pregnant. And this alien who is holding her is very covetous because he's like very interested in breeding his pets to each other. And he is very interested in possibly breeding Drakal with one of them. And he said, I would be very interested in any offspring you could produce with her. So maybe when she's had this cub and she's healed up, maybe I would let you borrow her to impregnate. And Drakal is being shown this and is just getting angrier and angrier. And then he really looks at this woman and she's his fated mate. And he's like, fuck no, my woman is not staying here. And he busts her out of there. He gets her to come with him. And once they get out of there, she robs him of his clothes and his weapons and is like, yeah, you tried to buy me. Because he does do that. He tries to buy her and like get her out of there in like a non-violent way. But all she hears is that he was going to buy her. And she's like, you sick fuck. I'm not going to stay with you. And she runs for it. And he's like, no, you're my mate. Come back. And so he goes home with his tail between his legs, literally. And Arcanthus is like, well, you did try to buy her, even though we know why you did that. You need to convince her that you actually want to help her. And so he tracks her down and he tells her the truth that she's his mate and that he's sorry he scared her. But even if she never wants to be with him, he offers her a job working with them and offers her a safe place for her and for her baby to be born. And, well, the rest is history because, of course, she can't resist him for very long. So we do have some monster anatomy in this. He does have a knot. So we do have some of that. We also have pregnancy sex, which I love. And then we also have sex after children, and that was really beautiful as well. So loved it. Then I read Ethan by Ella Frank, and this is one of the other highly anticipated books by me. So this is book 7 in the Confession series, but it's actually the second generation as well because Chloe, our heroine, is the daughter of Joel Priestley, Julian, and Robert. And they are a triad who the first 4 books of the series are about them, the princess, the prick, and the priest. And then there are 2 books that are about other characters. And then this one, Ethan, is the first book in this like a new trilogy. So because Chloe, who is 19 years old, she is a chef at her Pierre's, Julian, the restaurant. And for her birthday, she goes to a sex club with her cousin. And this sex club is owned by Ethan and Zane. And she ends up biting off a little more than she can chew. But she gets invited to spend the night with them. So Zane and Ethan, they are a couple together, but they take a third sometimes. And they're very interested by Chloe. So the way that Ella Frank does, they are just like, yeah, we think we want a third. And this girl, she's never really tried submission before, but she seems really curious. And so there's lots of negotiating and lots of discussing. And they end up asking her to be there. So there's a cliffhanger in this one, and it was a really good one. Like, cliffhangers aren't the best, but I say this, like, I knew there was a cliffhanger because I know there's going to be Ethan, Zane, and Chloe, like, are going to be the names of the books. Like, I know that. And so I was prepared for this cliffhanger, and I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read the next one. I gave this one 5 stars actually, because there wasn't anything I didn't like about it. And this one was a 4 on the spice scale. There was restraints, there's control, there's 2 doms involved, there's toys, there was some crops, and yeah, and then the trigger warning is one of the men has a homophobic parent, so be prepared for some of that. And then the last book that I finished was Delectable by Emily Robertson. I also won't talk much about this because this is also part of the ABCs of Love. If you can't tell, there was Comfort and now there's Delectable. And this one is actually my favorite one I've read so far. This one is a small town. It's a single parent. The guy is a recent divorcee. And he actually has a good relationship with his ex-wife, which was also nice to see. And then our heroine's name is Beth, his name is Jace, and they meet at their place of work, which he does like the books for this small restaurant. Like he does the accounting and stuff, and she is a waitress there, and that's how they meet. So it was cute. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a 2 on the spice scale, and it does have some trigger warnings of the heroine has PTSD and some parental issues from the past. So there we go. So yeah, there we go. Those were all the books that I read this week. I'm so happy that I was able to get through so many, even with the sickness. But we're like, February is basically over, which is crazy. We just have a few days left. So I was happy that I got through quite a few books still. So thank you so much for watching this. And again, thank you to my channel members and patrons who support me and help make this happen. If you are interested in supporting the channel or sending a one-time gift maybe, check out my links down below. And they will be there for you. So thanks so much for watching, my friends, and I'll see you next time.